What's up, you guys? It's your boy Squints here with another episode of A Man and His Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Mad Dog Connelly.
For the people who might not know, who is Mad Dog Connelly?
I am a professional wrestler, currently based in Memphis, Tennessee. I've been wrestling for 7 years. I have traveled all across the country. I am currently the 01 USA Heavyweight Champion. Squints, who do you think I am?
I think you're the baddest motherfucker.
Okay.
We had some fan-asked questions. Let me go ahead and pull those up real quick. I have a question of my own.
Go ahead.
Why do you wrestle barefooted?
Well, I've been barefoot a lot in my life. When I was in high school, I used to go to punk shows at the Black Sheep Cafe in Springfield, Illinois. There, I met a lot of people that would walk around barefoot just for the fun of it. I did so myself. I would play barefoot as well. And so at a certain point, my boots were getting really worn, and I was having to use duct tape to keep them together. There were a lot of holes in them. My toes were essentially sticking out. And so I decided to just finally toss them and just go with tape around my feet.
Word. So before we get into the fan asked questions, I just watched your match against Tanner Keeler at 01 USA War Games. How does it make you feel knowing that you are the man that essentially retired Tanner Keeler?
There's a lot of mixed emotions. I have known Tanner for my entire career, and he has been very important throughout my career, giving me these matches that I can remember for the rest of my life. Even back when we were just starting, I was maybe 2 years in, maybe a year in even, and we were both going by different names, to now being who we are. And he's one hell of a person, honestly. He's a great father. He is a great husband, a great wrestling coach. And so now to give him the send-off from being a great professional wrestler, it really meant a lot to me.
So this next set of questions is from a friend of yours, Zach Ruber. He had a series of questions, and we're going to start from the bottom up. What is Mad Dog Connelly's proudest moment?
There's a lot, and I'm sure there's going to be more to come. I think it's a tie between watching I was a trainer for a couple of years down in Springfield, and I had the pleasure of watching my students debut and excel and learn and grow. I currently still have that privilege. However, seeing people like Kenny Calix or B.A. Malkin graduate and make their debuts in professional wrestling really made me feel proud as a trainer and as a mentor to these people. However, that is tied with the moment that I had Steven Manders draped across the top buckle with my chain wrapped around his neck and his life being choked out of his body. The blood pouring down my face felt warm, Squints. It felt warm.
So while we're on the topic of that match, you have a match coming up with him in July, I believe, in a Texas bull rope match. How are you preparing for that match compared to preparing for the dog collar match? Because the dog collar match is arguably your match. The Texas bull rope match is Steven Manders.
It doesn't matter what kind of match it is. Steven Manders won with a fluke the second time around, and we all saw what happened the third. Now, if he wants to try for a fourth, that's fine, man, and that's perfectly fine. But whether or not it's a rope, whether it's a chain, whether it's simply my hand wrapped around his throat, it will all end the same. And Manders will once again live his truth.
So this next question is from Zach Ruber also. Trying to get on a more positive note. He asks, do you love him? Do you love Zach Ruber?
That's a complex question because the feeling of love comes and goes from my body quite frequently. I question everyone's intentions around me. And I have known Zach for quite some time now. Yes, in this moment, I do love Zach Ruber.
He also asks, minor threat or, pardon me if I can't pronounce this right, Fugazi?
Fugazi. And
Minor
yes,
threat.
Fugazi.
Fugazi. Is your answer? Are those bands?
Yes. With a man named Ian Mackay. Minor Threat was a hardcore punk band. Fugazi was more of like a emo kind of project. Like, I don't know what you would call them. Maybe like a shoegaze type of thing.
Okay. And then he also asks, what are the top 5 silly moments of Mad Dog Connelly? Is Mad Dog Connelly ever silly? Is my real question.
It depends on who you ask. I've had several silly moments.
What do you think your silliest moment is?
I will say there was an incident in Peoria, Illinois. I would count that as a very silly moment. That's one, right? That's one.
That is a silly moment.
Some would say throwing a trash can at a fan is a silly moment.
When was that?
That was in Jersey for WrestleMania week against Demus.
That's right.
I did not intentionally hit that fan, but it did bounce off of their body. That is all right.
Were they okay?
I think so. I'm not sure. Probably being buried underneath countless steel chairs, and then being busted open by one of those steel chairs. And then I think is that 4 or 3?
You're on 4. You're going on 5th. You're going for your 5th one here. Make sure it counts. If you can't think of one, I have one I think was pretty silly of you. At War Games, you pushed over a ladder and it almost hit a kid. That was pretty silly.
That was pretty silly.
That was pretty silly.
I think I would have to agree with you.
And then these next set of questions are from a fan of the podcast, not a fan of me, Jason Klein. You mentioned WrestleMania weekend, you threw a trash can. It did hit a fan, or almost hit a fan.
I think it did hit the fan.
He asks, just ask him about his WrestleMania weekend match and the reaction on Twitter to it. How did that match feel for you coming off of it?
So answering your question from earlier, what's my proudest moment? I think, or Zach's question from earlier, I think that weekend is probably also one of my proudest moments. Simply because I wasn't necessarily planning on coming to WrestleMania week to Philly. It just sort of happened. Matt Griffin from Action messaged me and asked me if I was going to be around. And when he messaged me that, I went, yes. At that point, yes. If you're asking me to be there, then yes, I will make it happen. And so there was a lot of ups and downs with plans on how I was going to get there, but it happened. And I was very grateful to have been given such an opportunity to showcase myself and my ability against somebody like Damos, who I feel matched my energy pretty well. And honestly, for that being the only match I had that week, I would say it was very successful. I got to take a seminar from Matt Hardy the day after, and
Sorry for that technical difficulties we had there. Uh, but we had a question from Jason Klein asking the transformation of Dan Liplock into Mad Dog Connelly. Is that something you want to elaborate on or discuss?
sure, when I started wrestling, um, I wrestled under the name of Handsome Dan Liplock. I chose that name because it was the way that others saw me. I wanted to portray that character because it's what everybody wanted me to do. I saw myself as somebody that could make others feel entertained, and I wanted to give myself to the people in a way that honestly wore me down after years of experiencing everything, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I was very tired of living under this mask that I had made for myself just to satiate the needs of everybody else around me when I was just trying to feel fulfilled in myself, but I couldn't. And so after 2 years, I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. And then the pandemic happened, and I was given the opportunity to reset and come up with a better game plan, something that would make me happy. Because I never got to do what made me happy. And so, in the late summer of 2020, I I made a video saying that I just wanted to be myself, and that self has grown into what is now known as Mad Dog Connelly. I didn't give myself that name. I was given that name by my trainer and by the commentators of the matches that I was having, because when they saw me in the ring, they saw a wild and rabid dog. And sometimes I look in the mirror and I often wonder if that dog isn't chasing a dead end. But I digress. That dog is here to stay, and that dog is now me.
What is your favorite breed of dog?
I really like corgis.
You seem like a quirky guy. This last question, I mean that in the nicest way. I'm sorry. Uh, this last question I ask every single guest, and I have a feeling I know what your answer to this is going to be, but if you could give any piece of advice to anyone, it doesn't have to be in wrestling, just any piece of advice in life, what would it be?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give anybody. So I have two. Um, One, I believe that patience is very important in a lot of situations. There are a lot of times where people are put in these situations where they feel beaten down, burnt out, and like nothing is going their way. And there is, and I've been there myself many times, especially in the last like 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. Um, but I think resilience and patience are two of the most important virtues in a person, because if somebody is able to take the biggest weight in the world and still be able to lift themselves up from it and persevere and make it through life with the weight that comes with it, and being able to wade through all of the things that life throws at you, and just being patient enough to get to the other side of that, really makes or breaks a person, because a lot of impatience comes from the frustration of feeling like things are never going to end. Things do end. Everything ends. Everything has an ending. Nothing lasts forever. And that means all of the bad times are coming to an end as well, even if the good times don't feel like they're going to last very long either. And I think being grateful is very important as well, because no matter what, we are still alive and we are still breathing. And what you do with that is up to you.
Is there anything you want to plug before we wrap this up? Any upcoming shows, where we can find merch, where we can find you on social media, stuff of that nature?
My social media is mostly the same. My Instagram is and Twitter or X is at MDCon420. 420 is my birthday. But also I love marijuana.
I feel like that has to happen when you're born on 420.
You would think so. My little brother, who is also born on the same day, does not like weed.
You and your brother share a birthday?
Yes, we do, a year apart.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm. My Facebook, you can just look up Mad Dog Connelly. I'm on YouTube as well. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. TikTok, all that stuff. I have a Teespring store, or Creator Spring or whatever, that you can buy merch off online. And I sell T-shirts. And I currently have one singular 8x10 that I'm going to try to sell tonight. And yeah, my upcoming shows, I'm in West Terre Haute, Indiana on June 8th for 01 USA. I'm facing Theo White. I am going to be at New South Pro Wrestling in Alabama on June 22nd. Decatur, Illinois for the Sliders Showdown for 01 USA on June 23rd. And then June 28th, I believe, is when I will be back at St. Louis Anarchy, is the next show.
Correct.
And then, of course, July, remind me of the day, July, for me and Manders.
It's July. I want to say 18th or 19th. That weekend would sounds about right.
I am in the SCI tournament, the Scenic City Invitational, July 12th and 13th. At least the 12th. I will be making it to the 13th through hell or high water. And then I will be choking Manders out with his own rope in the middle of the St. Louis Anarchy ring in July as well. And so on and so forth. There's a lot coming up, and I am very excited for the rest of this year.
Sounds like you have a big year planned ahead of you. I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast, and more importantly, not causing harm to me, because that was a big worry, and a lot of fans seem to worry. But I think Mad Dog's a fan of squints, I would say. I feel like you wouldn't necessarily hurt me. Maybe after the Corgi comment, saying you're a Corgi guy.
It's pronounced Corgi.
Corgi, yeah.
First and foremost, I am neutral on squints.
Neutral on squints.
Neutral on squints. I do not attack unless given a reason to attack. I am very big believer in preserving your energy, and if somebody gives me a reason to attack, I will, and I will fight anybody that is willing to fight me. However, I am a big believer in preserving your energy.
Awesome. You heard it here first. Mad Dog does not hate squints. If you would like, you can leave a thumbs up, a thumbs down, 1 star, 5 star, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that shit. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.